Hello, my name's Ronan and you are most welcome to this pit stop for Key Market, a game for 2 to 4 players taking around 90 minutes, designed by David Brain, published by R&D Games. In Key Market, each player is going to play over 2 years of 4 seasons in each of the years, attempting to be the most successful medieval farmer in the land. Now, each of the years is split up into these 3 different phases, and they all work in different ways. And the first phase is the farming phase. And in this one, we're going to look at the turn order, and the first player is going to complete all their actions first, then the second, then the third, and we're going to move on from there. So what do you do in this farming phase? First thing you can do is you look down here on this country board, and this is made up of fields which give you different types of resources, and you can move your workers which you have in play already. Now, when you wish to move a worker, it's going to cost you 1 money for each move they make. But you must be aware of certain rules when you finish doing all of your moves. For example, 2 of your meeples cannot be adjacent to each other in any direction. So that will not be legal to go there. Also, you cannot end up ever in the same area as any other meeple, and especially not in the same space. And an area is 2 fields which are next to each other, which produce the same resource. In this case, there's 2 fishing ponds here. Yellow's already in there. I can't be in there unless everyone gets 1 key worker, and there are special rules can be broken by this key worker using guilds, which we're going to get to later on. And the final rule, remembering it's 1 gold per space that you move, is that you move it into this village, and there's a village in the center of each of the tiles. Number of tiles in play is equal to the number of players, and you're going to produce luxury resources in there, but it costs you 5 money to move in, so it's an expensive investment. So you're going to look at the board, you're going to decide how you best want to place yourself around the place. And part of the decision on that is going to be how these different fields produce, and also what's going on in this market board over here. Now, it's hard for you guys to see, but there are square and there are circular fields on the board. And the usual production for a square field is 2 of whichever one of the resources it is, and for a circular field, it's just 1. However, for each season, we have these adjustment markers, and this one tells me that each circular fruit field this time round is going to produce 3, and each square wheat field is going to produce 0 this turn. And there's 1 for each of the resources, and they go around, and you always lay them out so you can see what's going on. So in this case, this square wheat field is going to be unproductive, so I would move this down, and it would cost me 1 money, and I'll leave everything else as it is. You'll note I took my money from behind my screen because that's where your money and your resources sit. Your meeples and your farmhouse sit in front of it. And now that we know that, I can get rid of that so I can see what I'm doing a little bit easier. Okay, I can move my workers around in order to place them strategically to produce resources. Before I produce, I can do one more thing. I can hire a worker. Now, I must follow the rules for hiring in that I cannot be orthogonally adjacent. I can't go in the same area, especially not the same space as anyone else. I also can never go directly into a village. The cost of hiring a worker is equal to how many workers I already have in place. So in this case, I pay 2 money. I can bring my worker into play. I'm going to place them there to take advantage of that extra resource thing. Now that I've finished buying and moving my workers, they're going to produce their resources. So as I said, I'm going to get 3 fruit for this one I just brought in. This is a square field here, unadjusted. That gets me 2 vegetables, and I move this one down here to get me 1 sheep. At this stage, you leave those resources there and you check these guild boards, which I mentioned already, and we're going to be coming back to, and you just see if they affect how you do production, because they can affect anything in the game. There are 16 of them. You play with 6, and these are the recommended starting 6. They've all got a number on them. And when I look over here, there's 2 powers that I've activated. One is that one of my 2 fields, my square fields, produces an extra 1, so I can take an extra vegetable. And also I can trade 1 resource for a luxury when receiving resources. So in this case, I'll throw that vegetable away and I'll take a luxury good. Now, why are these luxury goods? They're more expensive to go in there. It's because they allow you to upgrade your farmhouse and also give you discounts on various actions, as we'll see. So once I've checked all my production and all my guilds, I will put all those behind my imaginary screen, ready to move onwards. Now, there's a couple more things I can do during this farming phase before it goes on to the next player's turn. We've been talking about these fields. These guilds. I can't go into a guild now, but I can upgrade within my guild. I can promote. When you promote or go in, it's always going to cost you different resources. And when I move from being an apprentice here into being a craftsman on the 2nd level, it costs me 3 different resources. But here's where those luxuries come in. You can always spend 1 luxury as 2 different resources. I'll make it rain vegetables there, and I will move and promote within the guild. And that I can do during this farming turn as my 4th action. The other thing that the luxury resources give you, as well as paying when you want to pay for certain things, is that you start with a farmhouse. Everyone's farmhouse is very slightly different, and all it says, it dictates one particular type of good that they're required to have in order to upgrade their farmhouse. And it's always the good that's required, any other one, plus a luxury, which we happen to have, and then we can flip this over to become a manor house instead of a farmhouse. Again, this can be done in any farming phase. As long as you get it done at some point during the game, it's going to score you 15 points at the end. The final thing you can do on this farming phase, if you have upgraded to a manor house, is you can retire one of your workers. It can be from these fields down here or from these guilds, and if you do manage to retire them, it costs 4 resources, usual luxury thing. If you do it, they will score you 15 points at the end of the game, but will no longer be available to you. And although there's 3 spaces, it's actually unlimited how many you can retire, but good luck if you think you're retiring many more than 3. Right, those are my things I can do in a farming phase. I can move workers, I can hire workers, I produce my resources, I can promote, I can upgrade my house, and then I can retire. And then I move along, and it is down to the next player's turn. And they can do those things, and they can bring things into play, and they can do whatever they need to do. And eventually we'll all move on together to the next phase, which is Market Day. At the beginning of Market Day, each player is going to look at the resources they have behind their screen, and then secretly they're going to put them in their hand until everyone's ready to show what they're going to sell. And then you put them onto your house so that everyone can see what you are going to sell. Then we're going to go round the board clockwise, well, in turn order rather, taking one action at a time. And there's only 2 different types of actions you can do. The first type of action is to sell resources. You sell a batch of resources. You can sell a maximum of 2 when you're in your farmhouse, or 3 at once when you've got your manor house. And you simply choose the good and you say, okay, I'm selling pumpkins. They'll sell for whatever value is on display there, the highest one, and then one of them will go in and reduce the cost of that particular resource from now on, and the rest of them will go into the reserve. And then we go around the table. Perhaps there's been a run on sheep now, because they can see that I'm trying to sell a sheep, and that player will get 4 per sheep. This will get 3. Comes back round to me. I have to sell this good at some point during this round, but now they've rinsed me out of it, so I'd only get 2 money for that. And when you're making all of this money, you're going to need it, because eventually we're going to have to pay our workers down here, as well as they will score you some points at the end of the game. So secretly have your goods, everyone shows them, you take turns selling, but instead of selling on your turn, you could pass, or everyone gets to take 1 guild action during this market day. And there are 5 different guild actions you can do. Firstly, you can sponsor an apprentice by paying 2 goods. That's how you get on the first level, and that's how you're going to have your workers in these guilds in order to promote them during the next farming phase. You can promote again, doing exactly the same as during the farming phase. You can retire again if you wish to. Remember, you can only do 1 of these 5 things on each turn. You can buy resources, only 1 type of resource, it's 1 or 2, and you pay the number shown. And then if you're buying 2, you take them both off, and you can somewhat manipulate the price somehow by doing that. And the final thing you can do is, if you're very short of money, you can take 5 gold for your action, minus 1 for every worker you already have in play on these country boards. So we're selling and we're taking 1 guild action. When you've taken your guild action, you push across again, and then we're going to get into the end of season. The end of season, anything that's got lots in the market is going to adjust, and some of them are going to come out in order to make those prices a bit more sensible and worthwhile. Also, we're going to take away these season markers that affect production, and we'll get to see what's coming up in the second year if we're still in year 1. And we put these out so that people can have some anticipation of what might be coming up, because these are the same sets for every game. So you can see that wheat's no longer going to be affected at any point. Now you look at the country board. For every worker you have in play, you must now pay 2 money or remove them from the board. One of the reasons you might want to remove them from the board is that when we get to winter here, there's no base production during winter. The only way to stimulate production is by being on certain areas in certain guilds, and they all have the winter snowflake next to them. So I could choose to pay my 6 money to keep them all in play, or I could choose to take 1 off to make a discount for that. And the final thing we'll do at the end of a season is we'll adjust player order, and we'll look here on the board and we'll see who has the most and fewest meeples in play. In this case, I've got 3, yellow's got 3. This is called the favour board. It starts off in reverse player order because I'm higher up here. I would stay in first, but I would go to the bottom of the favour board. It's the only way that can really adjust. Then yellow is next fewest, it will come here, and then blue, for having 4 on there, would go down and would be the last player for the next season. We'll go through the phases again. We'll farm, we'll do market day, we'll do end of season, we'll go back, we'll start our second year, we'll go through the 4 seasons again. At the end of the game, we're going to add up our total points. If we've upgraded our house to a manor house, it's 15 points. For each retired worker, we're going to get 15 points. For each money we have left at the end of the game, they're worth 1 point each. We're then going to look at our goods left, and for each pair of goods of the same type we have, they're going to be worth 5 points. We then go across and we check our guild members. And depending upon where you are up in a guild, you're going to score a certain number of points. Now, each guild is individual. It tends to go 5, 10, 15. But, for example, the Guild of Key Workers only goes to 5 when you get to the top because it produces more. Also, certain guilds have got masters which give you end game scoring. So they're not worth anything themselves. But this one, for example, a boost of 3 points for every pair that I have. Or this one up here, for every sheep or fish I have, they get 5 points each of them by themselves, so I can go along that way. And by choosing what guilds I go on, it's going to drive some of my strategy towards scoring all of these points, because at the end of the 8 turns, the most points will be the winner of Key Market. This has been the Game Pit Stop. For more videos like this, please check out the Dice Tower YouTube channel. For our opinions on gaming, please check out the Game Pit Podcast, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. Thank you very much.